Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host Gershwan and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about Space Marine chapters as we get into another viewer request. Again, if you guys have any requests, please comment down below. Don't forget to put suggestion followed by the topic idea or the Space Marine chapter that you guys would like us to create a video for. It could be both Traitor or Loyalist chapter, doesn't matter. Just comment down below. And then the whole reason for that is it's easier for us to pick out the suggestions from the comments if you guys use that tag of suggestion. But anyways, let's get into 40 facts about the Soul Drinkers. The Soul Drinkers were a renegade chapter of Space Marines declared excommunicate traitorous by the Inquisition because of their extremely high levels of mutation and obvious corruption by chaos. Yet the Soul Drinkers still consider themselves to be loyal to the Emperor of Mankind, if not his Imperium. The Soul Drinkers' power armor is purple with ornate bone and gold trim, and a golden Imperial Aquila or Imperialis on their breastplate. The Soul Drinkers' chapter badge is a golden chalice with 5 spirals of soul energy rising out of the top, and the 2 blades of a golden laurel wreath sprouting from its base. This is centered on a field of purple. When the Arch-Traitor War Master Horus was slain and the rebellion broken, the remaining loyalist legions were broken up into chapters, so no man would have the power over so many Space Marines ever again. Rogaldorn knew the pride his sons took in the glory of the Imperial Fists, and fought to have his legion left intact, but he bowed to his fellow Primarchs, and his Marines became a multitude of chapters, one retaining the name of the Imperial Fists, and the others taking on new names and heraldry, ready to forge new paths into Imperial history. A new tier of Adeptus Astartes was created. This event became known as the Second Founding. As such, the first warriors to form the ranks of the new chapters were the very same Space Marines who had fought at the side of their Primarch before and during the Horus Heresy. To each of his successor chapters was given a symbol of their sacred purpose, gifted by Dorn himself, so that they would remember that his spirit was with them always, and his glory was there also. The Soul Drinkers formed from the fleet-based shock attack elements of his legion, receiving the Soul Spear, a relic warp vortex weapon. Dorn himself had found it on the dark and lonely world during the Great Crusade. With it he had speared great warp beasts, and from it he hung his banner on 100 worlds reconquered in the name of the Emperor. One of the Soul Drinkers' most famous campaigns occurred during the War of Apostasy, also known as the Terran Crusade, which was a series of battles and military campaigns fought against the forces of the renegade High Lord of Terra, Gouge Vandire, during the Age of Apostasy's Reign of Blood. In the year 378 of the 36th millennium, the Black Templars High Marshal declared a crusade against Vandire. The Black Templars, together with their parent chapter the Imperial Fists, the Soul Drinkers, the Zealot Firehawks, and elements of the Martian Tech Guard, took the fight to Terra itself and laid siege to Vandire's ecclesiarchal palace. The crusade ended with the death of Vandire at the hands of one of his former bodyguards, Alicia Dominica, the founder and future patron imperial saint of the Adeptus Sororitas. The Soul Drinkers also had many notable victories on other worlds against Xeno races, such as the Eldar, during this time. The Soul Drinkers were declared excommunicate traitorous by the Inquisition after their obsessive need to retrieve the relic known as the Soul Spear, which had been lost for 1,000 years, since the Soul Drinkers' flagship, Sanctifier, had been lost on a warp jump. It had finally been found, residing in the collection of a degenerate who had no comprehension of its true significance. The Soul Drinkers vowed to bring it back to their chapter's embrace. This eventually brought them into conflict with the Adeptus Mechanicus. The forces of the Mechanicus were ostensibly assisting the Adeptus Ministorum, but in actuality wanted to obtain the Soul Spear for themselves, so that they might examine and possibly reverse engineer its ancient technology. The standoff between the Soul Drinkers and the other Imperial forces ended with the destruction of the Mechanicus Starfort Laconia, and major damage to several starships of the Adeptus Ministorum and the Adeptus Mechanicus. The remaining Soul Drinkers retreated into their strike cruisers, to an asteroid field, where they were bested by the combined fleets of the Inquisition and the Adeptus Ministorum, until the Soul Drinkers' fleet, led by Chapter Master Gorgoleon, arrived by warp route 931C, that had been closed for 600 standard years prior to this incident. After the Soul Drinkers chapter fleet linked up with the survivors of the Soul Drinkers assault on the Starfort, Chapter Master told his fellow Soul Drinker captain, Sarpedon, of an offer the Inquisition had made, which required the death of the Space Marines involved in the Laconia incident in exchange for a pardon. Gorgoleon explained that he had refused his offer on the basis that the only person fit to judge a Soul Drinker was another Soul Drinker. This judgment would require Sarpedon to face Gorgoleon himself, in a ritual duel to the death known as the Shield Rites, to determine the righteousness of Sarpedon's actions on Laconia. During the height of the duel, Sarpedon seemed to be affected by some outside power and spontaneously grew 8 arachnoid legs, giving him a crucial advantage over the Chapter Master and enabling him to tear his commander to pieces, and so claim the mantle of Chapter Master for himself. Although he did not know at this time, his mutation was caused by the corrupting powers and influence of the Chaos God Tzeentch, who intended to make the Soul Drinkers yet another one of his countless spawns in the Chaos Eternal War against the Imperium. After a brief but bloody struggle with those who could not accept his mutation, and those who still believed that Sarpedon was uncorrupted, Sarpedon became the new leaders of the Soul Drinkers chapter. From that point on, he was in command. Despite their rejection by the Imperium of Man itself as an utterly corrupt institution, the Soul Drinkers remained loyal to the Emperor of Mankind, even after they had been exposed to the raw powers of chaos. This exposure subsequently began to manifest mutations in the chapter's other Space Marines. After a time, the chapter apothecary Pallas managed to stop the spread of the new mutations, and also to halt the progression of mutations in those Astartes already afflicted, thanks to the retrieval of information held on the planetoid Straxus Luminae. This information came at the price of the Soul Drinkers being forced to abandon one of their sergeants, Telos, and his cadre of assault marines, on their way back from the planetoid, though Telos and his squad turned to the service of Chaos completely to save themselves. The Soul Drinkers next came into conflict with the Crimson Fist Force Commander Rhaenys, and with the Slaneshi-worshipping Dark Eldar, in an attempt to bring the now Chaos-aligned Sergeant Telos to justice. After a long battle between Chaos forces and the forces of the Imperium, Sarpedon fought Telos in a duel. Sarpedon emerged victorious, and believing Telos dead, he withdrew the Soul Drinkers from combat. Telos survived, only to be killed when the Inquisition bombed the world where Telos and his warband had taken up residence. The Soul Drinkers next had to face the enemies from within and without, as a promising scout marine, Brother Eumenes, usurped the chapter's leadership from Sarpedon. Meanwhile, the Howling Griffins chapter had vowed to destroy the ambiguous chaotic forces known as the Black Chalice, which they believed to be the Soul Drinkers chapter. In the end, Sarpedon killed Eumenes, declaring him unworthy of being chapter master. He then addressed the remaining Soul Drinkers battle brothers, asking if any of them wished to take up the burden of the office of chapter master. When none of them responded, Sarpedon declared he would remain the chapter master. Not satisfied with this, at least one squad of the newer Soul Drinker recruits left the chapter. While fleeing from the Adeptus Mechanicus task force, the Soul Drinker Space Hawk was severely damaged and found itself low on fuel. Forced to run from the Mechanicus forces, the Soul Drinkers went deep into the Veil region of the galaxy in search of fuel. They discovered the Necrons, active on many worlds in the region of space, all with signs of previous human settlements, but now infested with the undying ancient Xenos. Eventually, they came upon the last of the human worlds that the Necrons were still in the process of cleansing of all life. The Soul Drinkers made a deal with the survivors. They allowed the humans time to retreat to their spacecraft, while the Soul Drinkers held the Necron forces off. In exchange for the Soul Drinkers receiving fuel, The Soul Drinkers held out against the Necrons, and the escaping human population reached their spaceport as agreed, but a Necron fleet arrived in system, preventing them from leaving. The Adeptus Mechanicus fleet arrived shortly after, and the two fleets began fighting each other. It became obvious that the Imperial forces would soon be destroyed by the more potent Necron fleet, so they began a complex pattern of maneuvers intended to delay the inevitable. When the Soul Drinkers realized they could not beat the approaching Necron forces on the ground, while the Mechanicus fleet would lose in space, Sarpedon offered an alliance to the Mechanicus. Chaplain Ictenos of the Soul Drinkers and his flock of Space Marines remained behind to help defend the spaceports and the surviving humans. It is revealed that Ictenos, and through him, his flock, is loyal to another master and not the Emperor of Mankind, although the identity of this master was never clear. Accepting the proposed alliance from the renegade Space Marines, the Mechanicus and the Soul Drinkers set off to the main Necron hub world, Celica, planning to destroy the Necron Lord and leave the rest of the enemy forces in the region leaderless. Arriving at the Necron Tomb World, the Mechanicus crashed their starship into Sakella and deployed their force alongside the Soul Drinkers. A long, bloody battle ensued, as the unlikely allies sought to kill the Necron Lord before the Necron's superior numbers overwhelmed them. Finally, the Imperials arrived at the Necron Lord's headquarters, and Sarpedon dueled and defeated the undying creature. However, in typical Necron fashion, the Necron Lord soon resurrected itself and began crushing Sarpedon to death. Only through the sacrifice of the tech priest Lygus was the Necron Lord finally defeated. Gathering his forces, Sarpedon led his remaining warriors toward the crashed Adeptus Mechanicus starship, where his promised transports were to be awaiting them. Instead, they discovered 3 Imperial Fist Thunderhawk gunships deployed upon the surface of the planet, while 20 Imperial Fists of the Elite First Company in Terminator armor teleported onto the planet, led by First Captain Lysander. He ordered the Soul Drinkers to surrender to Imperial justice or be destroyed. Sarpedon replied by invoking the right to challenge Lysander to a personal duel. Despite Sarpedon's warp-enhanced strength, he had been badly depleted in the earlier fights, and was swiftly defeated by Lysander in a single combat. Sarpedon had ordered the Soul Drinkers to surrender if he was beaten by Lysander, and thus prevented the chapter from being wiped out by the Imperial Fists. And those were 40 facts about the Soul Drinkers. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for making this suggestion. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel because you want to know what happens to these captured Soul Drinkers. That's going to come in part 2. So again, subscribe to the channel. If you have any more suggestions, please comment down below. And don't forget to like this video, guys. It really helps out the channel if you like, comment, and of course subscribe to the channel. The giveaway is coming very soon, so stay tuned. See you guys tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.